Welcome to the World Tour of Meditation. The purpose of the show is to debunk popular myths around meditation so a lot more people can actually access deep inner peace, calm, and joy. And today I'm so delighted to have with us Kristen Vandivier. And Kristen is a teacher in the Vedic method. She is the founder of the Vedic method, and she's also the founder of an organization called Meditation Without Borders. Is there anything you'd like to add, Kristen?
Yeah, just so you know, the Vedic method is my brand name, but the technique I teach is called Vedic meditation.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you tell us just a little bit about your story and how you came across Vedic meditation? And then after that, I'd love to jump into Meditation Without Borders.
Yeah, of course. I learned to meditate about 10 years ago, somewhere in there, and I was working in advertising. I was both a writer and an art director, and it was that's a very stressful line of work, as many people know. And so, one of the people I worked with always used to disappear right before when we had a big presentation. And he would go meditate, and I'd be like, oh my God, he's gone again. What are we doing? But then his teacher came into San Francisco, was visiting the city and was giving a talk. And so I went to go hear him speak. And I was really skeptical at first, but then there was something about this teacher that resonated with me. And that's when I learned. And my teacher's name is Tom Knowles. And he was a protege of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Mm-hmm. So he's a Western guy, but his the lineage is very old and comes from India. And so I did that for a while. I just meditated, as it wasn't like something I identified with necessarily. It was just something I did every day to help me live my life, handle everything, especially once I got married and had children and all that. And then what was it? I don't know, 4 years ago or so, I had this major epiphany to teach. And it came out of nowhere that I should teach this. And so I studied very intensely for a year, it was crazy because as soon as I had the epiphany, the company that I'd been working for just suddenly just closed. It was like,
what?
It was afraid. It was like this 11-year-old company, and it just like closed out of nowhere. I was like, oh my God, did I do that? I'm so sorry. But it just closed. And so suddenly I was like, what do I do? Do I find another job, which didn't seem even remotely interesting or charming, or do I do this? So I started studying, very intensely for a year. And then I went to India for 3 months, which required me to leave my 2 children at the time. I had 2 then. I have 3 now, but I had 2, and one was 4 and one was 2 years old. Mm-hmm. I left them for 3 months, which was as any mom can imagine, was a very big deal. And I came back and I started practicing, and I founded the Vedic method, which is my personal practice. And then this segues right into Meditation Without Borders, because after teaching for a few years, I had another calling, and it was to teach, not just teach people in my local area, but that meditation really needs to shift from an individual practice, something that people do, like an individual tool to make people happy, to get the things that they want to be happy. That's not really how it works, but that's what people think of it, to a tool for social change. And so so I started Meditation Without Borders. The idea came about a year ago, and so we've been working to get that going. And so we have just finished our first project this week.
Cool.
And when I say we, it's me and there's 2 other teachers who I'm doing it with. One is Isabel Kiosayan, she's in Mexico, and Shannon O'Dalton, who is up in the Sonoma County area.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. When you say people think of meditation as something to get results, but that's not what it really is. How do you take that and apply it then to getting results in a socio-political context?
Well, I have to explain what I first meant, and then I'll move it to the socio.
Perfect. That would be great.
So I'll dive into that more. When most people the collective, when they think of meditation now, tends to think of it as this thing that you can do to get the things you want that'll make you happy. So
such as
like, it'll make you more productive. So when you're more productive, you'll get promotions, so you can get the house, so you can get the life you want. It'll make you look younger, because it does. It makes you age slower. So you'll be healthier, so you'll look better, so you'll get the boyfriend or girlfriend that you want, and it'll make you happy. So that is an outcome-oriented way of living,
mm-hmm.
where you think that your happiness is always on the other side of an outcome, on the other side of a achievement, on the other side of an acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
What meditation really does, you will get those things. You'll be more productive and you'll look better, but that won't matter at that point, because what it really does is it takes you inward to that place of fulfillment, the place of being. It lets the mind, it'll relax so much that it gets to that place from the source where we get all our thoughts. If you think about people as like little waves on an ocean, most of the time our mind is up in the waves, in the individual separate part where we see ourselves as separate from everything else. But we are also that ocean. And when we meditate, our mind comes out of that little wave and goes deep into the ocean. When it goes all the way to the floor of the ocean, that's being. And so what happens in meditation is, because your mind keeps going down there, you identify more and more with that place of being. That is a place of all fulfillment. Everything is there. Everything is one on that level. And so when you identify with that, then that is where you're getting your happiness and your fulfillment. You're not looking for it on the outside. And so rather than your actions being motivated by trying to find greater happiness on the other side of an outcome, which it isn't, that's, as soon as you get an achievement, it's great for a very short amount of time, and then it normalizes, and then you're on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
So with meditation, you are now motivated to act in order to bring that fulfillment around.
When did you start to understand that personally for yourself?
Everything with this kind of practice, with this practice like this, is gradual. It's very, very rarely do you get this, like, on one side it's this way and then one day you're this way. It's like everything is this kind of like, it's like turning up a dimmer on,
mm-hmm.
on the wall, where the light like comes slowly. So it's hard to know, like, from day to day, that there's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, the fulfillment coming from within just started to dawn as I started teaching, and I started realizing I wasn't motivated by how many followers I had. I wasn't motivated by how much money I was making. What was motivating me was by seeing the change in my students,
mm-hmm.
and seeing that the efforts I made, what that did for them. So that would be a good way of personalizing it. And that, what ends up happening is you're no longer just thinking of yourself as this little body. You see other people as extended self. So when you do something and that brings someone else joy or eases their suffering, you get that too. It's like yourself. It's just yourself over there, your extended self. So how that works in socio-political context, I guess, is so as you meditate, like I just said, you become less about, like, because you're no longer identified with just that little separate wave that sees all the other waves as different waves, and you're the ocean that then sees, oh, well, all those waves are ocean too.
Mm-hmm.
They're not even connected. It's not like the wave is connected to the ocean. It's just is ocean. It's all ocean. When you're in that place, you don't see other people as separate. And so, by not seeing others as other, so much of our division, so much of the political, awfulness that's going on right now is because people see other people as other. They see migrants as these are other people invading us. If people were to see those people as extended self, they would treat them much differently.
Mm-hmm.
They would feel for them. They would have empathy. And so meditation from a socio-political standpoint, is so important, because really what we have is not, you can look at all these different crises happening, but at their source, they're all crises of consciousness. They're all crises of ignorance. and people seeing others as other. If you look down, you know, look at what's really going on. So they have to be addressed on the level of consciousness. So in order to make a real change in the world, we can't do it from the outside in. It has to come from the inside out. Does that answer the question?
So that makes sense to me. But one of the things, so I have a background in anthropology, and one of the things I keep coming across in the anthropology literature is that when we'd start going down things that sort of arose from meditation, or like perspectives that looked at us as all really interconnected, their ability, those theories' ability to explain what was actually happening in the world, in the politics and in the real ways of the power dynamics, was really limited. And
that would be, it's not limited at all.
Okay.
If you understand Vedic principles, which, you know, the Vedas, which is from where you get all yoga, where you get all meditation, even Buddhist styles had their foundation in the Vedas, all Ayurveda, that's just a book of the Vedas. This is knowledge that is explaining what nature is doing. It's what nature is really up to. So when you understand that, when you understand the principles by which what nature is really up to, you can apply that to anything. You can apply that to any political situation. You can apply that to any interpersonal situation, both the macro and the micro. It all is working on the same principles.
Can you maybe tell me what Vedic meditation is, and like how you would apply that in a particular conflict zone?
Well, the meditation is the tool for having the consciousness. So Vedic meditation is a tool for allowing your mind to go to that deep level in order to identify with that ocean. That's one way in which it works. Also works in which it lets, because your body, when your mind goes deep, your body relaxes very deeply, which releases stress from the system. As it's releasing stress, you know, enlightenment is actually a purification process, because the light is in here. It's just covered with ignorance and stress and all that, and that just needs to get cleared away. And that's what it's doing, because you rest so deeply, you know, even much deeper than sleep. The body is releasing that stress, and then it's purifying that. So it's shifting your consciousness level in that way. And so when your consciousness is shifted and you identify with that source of knowledge, which, you know, all knowledge is structured in consciousness. And so you start to understand, you can study the Vedas, or at a certain point, if you meditate enough, you start actually just cognizing it. The knowledge is there. It almost just makes sense. And so the meditation itself is the tool for understanding, you know, what it is that's really going on in our world. What is true knowledge?
And for people who might be newer to meditation, how is the Vedic meditation set of tools different from what people might be more familiar with, such as like listening to meditation on an app or Vipassana or something?
Okay, yeah. Well, there's all different types of meditation. You know, they tend to fall into three different camps. You have the concentration styles, you know, like the Vipassana. Those tend to be originally monastic styles. Like the Vipassana is a very difficult style, and was intended for people who did little else, you know, other than meditate. And then you have your contemplative styles, which are like guided meditations, and you know, like metta meditation, where there's a subject matter. Like say you're meditating on compassion. That works because by where our attention goes grows. So if you're meditating on compassion, then compassion that compassion part of the ocean will enliven within you. But they're more specific.
Okay.
And guided meditation, you know, the app meditations are kind of like, they're not bad, but when you compare like an app guided meditation to like a committed practice, like Vedic meditation, or even like something like Vipassana, you know, it's like comparing taking a bath to swimming in the ocean. You know, there's nothing wrong with either, but they're completely different experiences, and one is so much deeper than the other.
Okay.
We're at a point where meditation has a lot of reach. You know, you see it everywhere. It's in every magazine. It's, you know, there's all these apps, a lot of people trying to profit off of it, but really and that's good. It needs reach before you have depth, but it's now at the point where it needs more depth. Or at least for certain people, they've reached the stage where they're looking for more depth. I should put it that way. So the difference between a meditation like Vedic meditation is it's a committed practice. It's for people who have maybe tried an app and are like, I want more,
Okay.
And so it's, I'm not looking to teach everyone, because not everyone is ready for this sort of practice. But the style itself is different from, say, something like Vipassana, because it's an effortless style. It works on the level of effortlessness as opposed to focusing. A lot of those concentration styles are really, they're kind of difficult because you're trying to focus really hard, when this style is the opposite of focus. We're trying to go in the other direction and get expansive and allow. And because you can't think your way to another consciousness state, you can't think just be and then you're in being, or you can't think clear your mind and then your mind is clear. It's like thinking go to sleep, and then
it don't think of a pink elephant.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't work. You have to allow it. And so in this style, you use a mantra that has no meaning, that you think really, really loosely and effortlessly, and you can think thoughts at the same time. So it's not like you're trying to force your mind clear. And as you do this very effortless practice, it lets your mind settle. It's like the same way you allow yourself to go to sleep, you allow the consciousness shift to happen.
And why do you specifically say a mantra that has no meaning?
Well, if it had meaning, it would turn into a contemplative style in which you're
because there's intention in there. There's
right. It's become specific, and we're trying to get foundational. This is a practice. It's a yoga practice. It's actually called Nishkam Karma Yoga. Yoga, most people think of as like what they do in the gym, but really yoga is it just means union of the individuality and the totality. And so there's different ways to get there. You can get there with Hatha Yoga, which is, union by force. You can use Kriya Yoga, which uses a lot of breath work. Bhakti Yoga, which is union by devotion. And this is Nishkam Karma Yoga, which means union by action hardly done, or effortlessness, basically. So it's just, and it is even more foundational than the other practices, because rather than kind of going out to go in, you're just diving straight in. And they were originally intended to be done, like it wasn't like you were supposed to just do yoga or just do pranayama, like they're meant to kind of all be done together.
That's really clear. Thanks for explaining that. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you come across when people use the word meditation?
There's a lot of them.
What are like your favorite or your top 3 myths that you would like to debunk?
One is that people think that they can't meditate, like they're not the meditation type. And that's a complete myth, because meditation, it's so many things, but it's also a physiological process. So, it's not like you have to believe in meditation for it to work or be of a certain personality type any more than if you run, you'll have cardiovascular benefits. You don't have to believe in running for it to work.
Why do you think people say that then, or believe that?
I think it's because they don't understand what it is. It's hard to understand, like, wait, you're just sitting and closing your eyes and it's having all this effect. And a lot of people will try meditation. Like they'll try, for example, one of the concentration styles, and they're often try without a proper teacher. Meditation really needs to be taught by a human being.
And why is that?
That's the way it's been taught for thousands of years.
But what is the benefit of that versus like listening to a recording by a human being?
But there's so much, we're dealing with consciousness. And so, if you're really committed to shifting your consciousness state, then you want to be in a situation in which you have a human being that can respond to you directly, and that you have one consciousness and another consciousness with each other, that's why you have the oral tradition. Even if you just read a book on meditation, that's a great introduction, but then it's so easy to misinterpret. If you look at any of like religious texts that have gone down through the years, I just think of all the ways in which those have been misinterpreted. With an oral,
I don't want to think about them.
Yeah, let's not go there. But with the master, you have a master, and then you have the student relationship. Like this is something that has been going on and on for many, many millennia. As a tried and true way to teach. And so when some people will try to learn either through an app or through a book or, without a teacher, and then they think they can't do it. I have so many students come to me who are like, I tried to clear my mind, and my mind wouldn't clear. I have too busy a mind. I can't meditate. And I'm like, no, that's why you meditate. Everybody has that. That's the point. It's like being like, oh no, I needed to lose weight, so I didn't exercise. It's like,
it didn't work.
what? No, that's exactly, we all need to get exercise. We all need to get in shape. You exercise to get in shape. It's like you meditate to have that mind that is not just racing around repeating the same thoughts over and over again. That's a prerequisite. If you're not doing that, you're already like enlightened. So there's no point.
Then you don't need to meditate.
Don't worry about it. Then you're good. So that would be the biggest.
Okay. That people think they can't meditate, and they think that because there's a misunderstanding of what meditation is.
Right. And they and it also, it has been, it's been generally, the early adopters of meditation in this country have been people of affluence, people, white people mostly. And so a lot of people think, oh, well, I don't identify with that. And because I don't identify with that, that's not my thing,
You know people who say that, and you can tell it's because of
and that's
class,
changing.
race, boundaries. Wow.
It's completely changing, and I'm trying to do my best to change it. And I know many people who are working really hard on that front to change that.
Okay.
But that is also something that people just don't identify it. And I blame a lot of the Instagram stuff on that, because it gives like meditation like this kind of look and feel, to use advertising language. It gives it like a look and feel. And if people don't identify with the beads and the whole, that whole wellness
and the yoga body,
right, exactly, that perfection, which really it's like no,
wow,
about that, then, but like meditation has nothing, it doesn't have a look and feel, what I mean?
I love that you used the word perfection just now. I really love that you used the word perfection just now, because I think that like the assumption of that perfection is what I find like puts a lot of people off meditation, because they got this idea that it's like stones stacked on each other, or like that feeling of that lotus on that clean empty pond,
right?
And that's already like way too high a barrier to ever even try.
Because I was in advertising, I always have had a rough time in how I present my work, because I don't want to be too aspirational. There's relatable and aspirational, and so I find a lot of the material out there on meditation is way too aspirational, in which it makes these, people who teach meditation seem like they're just like their lives are perfect, and everything, it falls into place for them. And that's not what it's about. And certainly I can guarantee you for most of them, that just is what it looks like on their Instagram feed, but that's not what's going on, And so because I'm a mom, I'm one of the few people who teach this who have small children, I try to balance, between showing them like, look, it's not that my life is different. Like I have kids who scream and my house becomes a mess and all that. And, you can meditate anywhere. You don't have to be in this perfect like room with a candle. Like, our meditation space is in our shed, our tool shed, because it's away from the kids and it's a mess, but it's like, okay, it's at least a little bit of privacy.
And Kristen, can you meditate in the shower?
I don't meditate in the I mean, you could if you were sat down, but that's not my spot.
Okay.
I guess you could. You can't meditate standing because you're trying to relax your body. But yeah. So anyway, that perfection thing I think is another boundary for people. And no, it's not about that. It's about living your life. I find it, rather than, my life is still messy, but I laugh at it a lot more than I do. And I adapt to things more than I used to, there's just an ease to things, things still happen, but it's whether you respond or whether you react,
Okay.
So I feel like I respond versus reacting. But yeah, that aspirational thing I think gets in the way. So I think that's
another question for you related to that aspirational perfection sort of mentality. Have you ever had like big flashes of enlightenment or like large moments when you're meditating, or is it always like gradual, step by step?
It, for the most part, is meant to be incremental. Mm-hmm. And the reason that we want it to be incremental is because anytime you have a big shift in consciousness, a lot of stress is released. And when a lot of stress is released, you feel the flavor of that stress on the way out. Just like when you're detoxing, you kind of feel that like, oh, on the way out.
Yeah.
So I have had massive shifts at one time. And it's just really intense because you have that shift. And if it's not stabilized, then it's almost like a wave that goes out and then it gets sucked in again. And so on that sucking in, you have this unstressing. It's like people who do ayahuasca and they have these incredible visions and they get sick afterwards.
Hey, I have a question I've been meaning to ask someone, but I've never really found the right person to ask. Maybe you know the answer to this. But I've heard of people who get develop some kind of mental illness or have some kind of psychotic breakdown after specific breathing and meditation practices. Is that something you've come across before?
Not with my style, because one of the reasons, like I said, it is designed to be incremental.
Okay.
We meditate 20 minutes twice a day, and it's like you dip in a little bit and then you come out, and then you dip in a little bit and come out. And so you don't really notice. It's a systematic practice. So it's a long game.
Okay.
Like I don't really and when I've had my shifts in consciousness, it hasn't necessarily been in a meditation. So no, I've never encountered anyone who's had a mental break, though I do.
Have you heard of that in any other traditions or prpractices?
I think in a case like that is someone who already is perhaps borderline schizophrenic.
Okay.
I actually have on my questionnaire, if anyone is schizophrenic, I don't teach anyone who has severe mental illness, and if they have minor mental illness, they need a doctor to talk to me first. Okay. Because if someone already is borderline, it is possible doing different consciousness things, especially something like not a meditation practice, but doing ayahuasca or something like that could have a real negative effect.
I think it's easier for people to see that ayahuasca or something that you ingest could, because there's obviously biology that you're ingesting, and that's easy to accept in the world. But I don't even understand how someone could go about thinking that doing a bit of breathing or sitting down for 20 minutes could bring up something.
It's the stress release. So if you have a major shift, there's breathing is very powerful. All this stuff is incredibly powerful. Because we are an outcome, action-oriented civilization, one of the things that is hard for my students to believe is that by doing nothing, they're doing so much. They have to get over that idea that wait, I'm not doing anything. It's like, oh no, you are doing so much. You are, but being is where all the doing comes from. So when you're going there, you are becoming that immense potential. So, for example, when we do really intense meditation retreats, which is something called rounding, where we do a lot of meditation and yoga and
called what?
Rounding.
It's
done in a round. So you do meditation and yoga and breath work, and you do it over and over again. It's like industrial strength meditation. And in those settings, we have to have, there's a lot of supervision because it is very powerful for people. And we have to watch them, make sure that they're not releasing too much stress. I've never seen a psychotic break, but it's more just they start, it just seems like they'll have a lot of anxiety. Or for me, how my unstressing came out when I was doing heavy rounding was I just was falling asleep everywhere, because that was what was my form of stress, was fatigue, because I'm a mom. So that's what was being released. So I was just passing out all over the place.
Wow.
But it is powerful. And meditation that's another reason why you want to have a real teacher, have a real person. If you're going to be doing, a guided meditation you're not going to have much unstressing, because you're not getting a ton of benefit either.
And you're not going deep into the ocean.
You're not going that deep. So you don't have to worry. But when you start doing a real practice, you really need a teacher, because then they can help you through, if you do start having an unstressing experience, rather than panicking and thinking oh my God, my meditation's making me stressed out. It's no, you're releasing something, and they can help guide you through that process.
Mm-hmm.
But because, if you start really getting on a path of quick evolution and you really start getting into this stuff, you really need some human beings to help you out.
That reminds me of an anecdote one of my meditation teachers told me, which was that someone was meditating and, they ended up getting really, really angry. And so they went back to the teacher and they were like, hey, you told me meditation is going to make me feel better. And the teacher's like, yeah, it's going to make you feel more, but not necessarily feel better.
Well, anger, it's the meditation, if you do feel anger, that's a sign of release. And so people who meditate for a long time, they will rarely act. They don't have that kind of stress chemistry built up. So often they'll respond to a situation. So you don't see a lot of angry meditators, you know what I mean? Or people who are high, who've been doing this for a very long time, who are,
But in the beginning, if you start going deep, it might start surfacing. Stress.
It's coming out. Exactly.
Okay.
You know?
Cool. So how do you take, just back to the question of like social engagement and what your work with Meditation Without Borders, because I really want to hear about that.
Right.
And it sounds to me quite unique. I really haven't heard anyone else do things like that before.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I've heard about people bringing meditation into like prisons and stuff.
Yeah. That's one of the places we're looking to go.
Oh, cool. Well, just tell me about that then.
Well, we're looking for areas of great suffering, areas of greatest need. And so, we just did a project at a cancer center that gives care to women with breast cancer who don't have the money to afford care. We're looking, like the end of April, we're going to we're teaching a collective of Indigenous women. It's a weaving collective. Then we're looking to maybe this summer go to Cameroon to teach at a gorilla sanctuary, to help the local populations around there who are dealing with a lot, and we, in order to help conservation for the sanctuary as well. They do a lot of work with these communities. We're looking at an orphanage, so it's really, we haven't like narrowed it to like, okay, this is who we want to talk to, but we are looking for places where there is great suffering and going to those places of great division in order to help those people, but also to inspire others to do what they can to help where there's need, because there's so much need in the world right now. And we want to show, that this is the efforts that need to be made, whether it's through meditation or whatever it is, that whatever gifts you have, we need to step out of ourselves and start working that way. And I want to show meditation to inspire other people who teach this, and also inspire people who are meditating to see that meditation is a tool for social change. I really want, I feel like I'm an ambassador for that message. And it's a message that needs to be heard, because we're not going to fix the problems of the world. We're not going to fix the problems with the leadership until we fix the consciousness levels of individual people. Like leadership, for example, is the reflection of the collective, the average consciousness of the collective. The only way to shift that collective is by shifting the individual consciousnesses of the people in that collective. And so it really is kind of from the ground up, creating change. And so there's all these different levels that we're doing the work that we're doing. But yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's really been beautiful work. Like, I've loved the people we've met, and everybody seems very excited about it. And there's no shortage of projects, because there's people who need us everywhere. So.
There's no shortage of suffering, is there?
Exactly. Unfortunately, there's not. So,
what is your vision for a world where meditation is used as a tool for social change? What does that look like?
Well, I think that's where we're headed. I think meditation is at that stage right now, like I said, where people think of it as a tool to get the things that they need to be happy. The next shift is going to happen where people realize, no, meditation is the way in which I find my happiness from within. And once more and more people are finding that happiness from within, then it comes naturally that they experience themselves as extended self, and the change just starts happening. Because once you experience yourself as extended self, then you can't sit by and watch suffering happen, because then it's happening to you. So I think, as meditation, one of the things I'm trying to do as well is just get the message across that, for people who are ready, there are deeper practices, and really understanding what meditation is, so that the more people we have meditating, the more it'll shift on its own. And then people will think of meditation that way, and there will be a lot of other people doing things other than meditation to help with the suffering.
What's some of the most remarkable shifts that you have seen when working in places that are quite troubled, where there's lots of suffering?
Um, well, like I said, we just did our first project, so I don't have a whole lot of data points on
All
that
right.
yet. But just to give you just some anecdotes from what happened there is, the women were so grateful. They were, crying with gratitude, both at the beginning and at the end of the process. And they even like threw a party at the end, which I think is so sweet, for my partner Izzy, who did the teaching, because they were so grateful for having something to help deal with their personal suffering. And also I think that someone saw them. Everybody wants to be seen, and
Mm.
that someone said, wait, we see you, that you're going through this, and that we want to help. And I think that that's touching for people.
How did they get to continue what you've taught them after?
Now they're self-sufficient meditators, so they are able to keep going on their own as long as they want. They also have us as support for the rest of the time that they're meditating, lifelong support. So if they have any questions, they can contact us, and we'll be in touch with them as well. So they it's really up to them how much they want to interact with us once they've learned. But they now know enough that even if they want to go off and do it on their own, they can. After I learned, I kind of was doing it on my own for years before I started really getting involved in like the meditation community.
Are there any other myths around meditation that you'd like to speak to?
Well, I guess, one of the myths is the idea that meditation is forgetting the things you want to make you happy, that really the happiness is within. That's one big one. The other, there's so many. Let me just think for a second. Meditation has to be hard. That's unpleasant. The way I teach, the style I teach is effortless. So it actually, when you wake up in the morning and you're not quite awake and you're not quite asleep and you're just kind of cozy, dreamy.
Best state, yeah.
That's when you go deep, that's what it feels like. So it actually, especially once you've been meditating a while and you've gotten rid of a lot of that initial stress, most of my meditations feel that way. So I really look forward to it. It's like I don't have trouble sticking with the practice because I like doing it.
Why do you think a lot of people do have trouble sticking with a practice?
A lot of the times it's because they don't understand it. So I find if I don't understand something, I'm not motivated to do it, no matter what it is. The second reason is it doesn't feel good, and a lot of the styles of meditation don't necessarily feel really good, Vipassana being one of them. Like you have to transcend all that discomfort. That's part of how it works, is transcending discomfort. And Westerners don't love discomfort. So, so it can be hard to sell, you have to kind of get past that to start having benefits. And even
when you say Westerners don't like discomfort, I remember when I was doing one of my yoga teacher trainings, I was taught that like restorative yoga started out with maybe wooden blocks and ropes to help people who are differently able to be able to access certain postures. And then when it came to the West, I was told Westerners don't like discomfort, so it became about blankets and bolsters and eye pillows and gongs.
When I was pregnant, I would go to those classes and I was just like, load me up with pillows, please. Like it was amazing. But it's when it comes to meditation, I think it's, one, people are like, clear my mind, and I can't do it. Or two, they're doing something difficult and uncomfortable and they don't like it. And so they don't stick to it. No one's going to stick to something they don't like. And then, because then it just becomes an intellectual process as opposed to just something you want to do. When you want to do something, you find time for it. Like I love to eat, and I almost never miss food. Like I never miss a meal. I'll always find time for food because it's what gives me it gives me some relief. So for me, I find my practice self motivates because I enjoy it. And for the people who learn the style I teach, the only time they have trouble sticking to it is usually in the beginning, because they're having some, in the beginning, there's a lot of stress release with the meditation. So they tend to be a little shallower. And it's not like they're not effective. They're just as effective. They're just not as deep, because when you have when stress is released in meditation, it brings your mind to the surface and you have a thought. So you imagine someone who's releasing a lot of stress. Well, their mind just keeps going to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And so it feels like they're meditating, but it doesn't feel deep, and it feels like they're thinking, and they're like, wait, I'm not doing anything. It's like they actually are doing something. It just doesn't feel as cozy. So for me, most of my meditations now have that cozy feeling. So it's very easy. I want to do it no matter what. And
Kristen, what do you think about, I was just hearing someone today talk about like meditation studios where you get a piece of technology that you hold or wear or whatever, and it tells you at the end like how well you meditated, because it measures something about the state of mind you're in, I guess. What do you think about it?
I think that's kind of I don't know. I mean, if someone needs that, great. And if it helps them meditate, great. But honestly, I don't like needing anything. Like I like the fact that it's a practice that needs nothing. Like it's about, it's your relationship with you. This is your relationship with you, your inner self. So I don't need to buy anything. People are going to, so there are people who are making stuff like that, and they're motivated. They're coming from a good place, and they're also coming from a place that they're trying to make a product that's going to sell something. And there are people who, athletes and stuff, who like to have that kind of like monitoring of like, okay, I checked a box, but this is also consciousness. We're dealing with levels of understanding that science is just beginning to understand. It's like quantum mechanics is just starting to break the boundaries of what these sages have known for millennia. Mm-hmm. And so there's nothing you're going to buy that's going to tell you what you experienced in deep consciousness. Like what you do is you practice every day, and then you start to understand your own mind. And like, I know when I've had a deep meditation because I can feel it, and I don't need a thing with me. And I don't like there being some, like, especially you don't want anything that you're dependent on, because then you need it with you wherever you go.
How do you not become dependent on a teacher? Going back to the conversation we had way at the beginning before.
If it's a good teacher, one of the actual hallmarks of a good teacher is that they are making you self-sufficient. If the teacher is making you dependent on them, then you know that you need to find a new teacher. Mm-hmm. I want my students to be independent. I want them to surpass me. I want them to become, it's my interest for them to go that way and to find their own, I'm here for them if they need me, but I certainly don't want them dependent on me. And because my motivation for teaching doesn't come from, it's not a business mindset. I'm not like thinking of like, oh, I want this person to come back because I want them to, buy more of whatever it is I'm selling.
And give you some recurring income stream.
Right. And I do advanced courses and things like that. But really there's a very small percentage of my students who are interested in that like more advanced knowledge. And it's not like actually I want to teach them. I teach them because they're interested. Because that advanced stuff takes a lot of time, and I don't have a lot of time.
So that reminds me of that phrase, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Exactly. And that's very true, and when it comes to a teacher, it's like it's important to find one that resonates with you. Find a teacher that, because there's all different types of teachers, and that's good. It means that, if all teachers were the same, then there'd be a lot of people who would be, who would not be able to access this knowledge. It's amazing that this knowledge comes out of so many different, unique, beautiful human beings. And so, for example, I resonate with parents a lot because that's what I am, and so they connect with the fact that I'm, my hair is tousled up in like something like this. I'm always racing around, and like my car is never washed or anything like that. They get that, and so they resonate with that. And so, but then I also know a teacher who's like a big computer nerd, and he like computer nerds, go to him. So it's kind of, and the more you do this, the more like I feel like I can relate to anyone, because I'm more and more becoming that big self, that ocean of self where everyone is, and seeing others as extended self. Then it's I don't see people as being that different to begin with.
That's
we're all
beautiful.
trying to do it. We all have the same problems.
I'm really excited for that, when the work that you're doing with Meditation Without Borders and the vision of getting even more people to see that they are in that consciousness that they are really connected to everyone else. And yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping it inspires people to do,
Thank you.
whether or not they do anything at all, just the fact that if they hear that we're doing it, hopefully that opens that in their minds in some way. I would be happy.
Is there anything I haven't asked you that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as a free gift, I like to offer 10 free phone consultations. If anyone is curious about meditation, wants to talk about it, or wants to know how, in their specific situation, how meditation can benefit them, or is interested in Vedic knowledge or any of this stuff I've talked about, I'd be happy to do that.
Great. I'll send them a link to get in touch with you then.
Okay, great.
Fantastic.